She's a trained culinary chef with almost 2 decades of producing ultimate cakes and sweets for discriminating clients throughout the Los Angeles and Napa Valley areas of California. Her successful wedding cake business has led to recognition in Brides magazine and 3 television appearances, including Cake Wars on the celebrated Food Network. Yet this year, after reaching a milestone birthday, Reva Alexander-Hawk is changing up the ingredients in her cakery career. She has packed up her pans and utensils and relocated to the East Coast, where she is working on shifting her cake expertise out of the kitchen and into the classroom. It's a life change that the talented cake artist sees as a continuation of her passion for bringing joy to the world through sweets.
I started in Santa Clarita, California, which is a suburb just north of Los Angeles. I think it started, it's like so long ago, it started out as Reva's Sweet Art because I was pastry chef, so I'm like, I can do everything. So I'm going to supply everything, so we'll call it Reva's Sweet Art. And then it gradually went into Merci Beaucoup cakes, fine cakes and pastries.
Why French? Is it just the ultimate French experience, or?
Well, you could say that, but it had to do with the rubber stamp because I had a little rubber stamp that had Merci Beaucoup on it, and I would stamp it on my cards and attach it to gift baskets filled with sweets. So it was like, it always said Merci Beaucoup on it, so it kind of just evolved into Merci Beaucoup.
In my mind, setting up outside of Los Angeles, even if it's a remote, suburb of Los Angeles, I can't imagine the competition that was in that area because it's such a populated area. Were there a lot of cake makers?
There were a lot of cake makers, but there were a lot of cake makers that didn't do what I did. So when I first started out, I was really into working with fondant, which is a rollable sugar dough that is placed over the cakes, like this. And at that time, a lot of people in the States were actually using fondant to cover the cakes. So I had to step up on anyone in my area because they didn't want to use that medium,
okay,
which I was really good at using. And a lot of people would just be like, no, we don't do fondant cakes. So when a bride is looking for a cake that looks specific, like I want this cake, and they go to somebody and they say, oh, we can't do that. But here, try this person because she can. And that's kind of how. Once I started to do the cakes, and I did a bridal show, I started getting the wedding orders pretty fast.
Is wedding the basis of your business, wedding cakes?
Yes. I've grown into wedding cakes. I did a lot of birthday cakes at the beginning as well because you get the birthday cakes out for word of mouth. Once you get the word of mouth out that like this girl's making great cakes, it's delicious, it tastes good, they look fabulous, they look unique. Let's tell everybody, let's tell all of our friends, and then once they tell their friends, and then somebody's getting married, then you kind of get into the wedding world, which is great.
Do you have a cake that you'd rather make as far as a wedding cake, a birthday cake, an anniversary cake, an everyday cake? I mean, do you make everyday cake?
I've worked really hard that I only have to make wedding cakes, and I only make the cakes that I want to make.
How long did that take?
Maybe 9 years to get to the point where I really can pick and choose what cake I want to do.
And why wedding cakes?
Because it's a new beginning, I would say, and everybody is always happy at a wedding. Sometimes when people, it's their birthday and they're changing, they're getting older and stuff, they're pretending to be happy. But weddings are usually always happy. And look at all those potential clients that you have, too, if you look at it that way with a wedding. I just like the weddings.
Do you have any idea how many wedding cakes you've made in your career?
Hundreds.
Is there one that stands out in your mind as the ultimate, either because it was a nightmare or because it was so stunning when you finished it?
It's always my friends' weddings that are always the best.
Why?
I don't know. Because I put a lot of love and energy into everybody's wedding cake, but it's just so much more special when you really know the couple and you can put little details into the cake so that only when they look at it, they're like, well, like she did that just for me because she knows me. So I like to do the cakes for my friends. But my favorite wedding cake to date, there's a lot of them. My 2 favorite wedding cakes. I just did one very recently for a couple, and they were having a vintage travel theme. And I did 2 suitcases because the bride kind of wanted something fun and funky, but the groom really wanted something very traditional. So I made him a traditional wedding cake that sat upon the 2 suitcases. And it was all cake, so it was incredible. That was so much fun. And then another one, which was a friend. It was just the most stunning wedding cake, and the bride was actually from France. So they flew here, and we did everything basically over the internet, and I made them the most beautiful wedding cake. It was like one of my most beautiful cakes to date.
When a bride comes to you, a bride and a groom come to you and say, we want a wedding cake, does it vary how much input they have compared to what you get to say it looks like? Or is it a give and take? Or do you set parameters that they can't change this part of it? How does it work?
I generally let them come in with the ideas that they really want, and then we work down from there. Not every cake design is right for every couple or every situation or venue. So they'll bring me what they really want, and then I'll kind of like pick it apart based on the venue, based on the time of year, based on how many guests they're having. I mean, there's a lot of factors that actually go into a wedding cake that people don't think of. They're like, oh, I want this gigantic cake, but I only have 30 guests. Well, you can pay for a gigantic cake and throw a lot of it away, or we can make something that's more fitting to your event, because I hate wasting cake. So I'll always tell them if they're getting too much cake, which is probably wrong in the business world, but I'd rather them have the perfect cake that's right for them than something that they think is right for them. And with so many years of experience, I'm able to direct couples to what they really need in a cake.
Is there ever a cake you've refused to make, or a cake that you've said, no, you can't, we need to change that because it will never work?
No. Because I find I talk to my clients really before I set a consultation, just to see what their abilities are or the parameters for that day. And but I've never gotten into a situation where I will say, no, you can't have that. In fact, if it's a buttercream cake in the middle of summer outside and it's going to be 100 degrees, I will strongly suggest that they go in a different direction.
And how about a bride and a groom and or a groom that didn't like the cake when it was done? Ever happen? Good for you.